This is the Health, Wealth, and Performance Podcast. I am the host, John Cartwright. In today's episode, what we're going to look at is how my smoker friend taught me the secret to achieving goals. Now, this person may not even know that they impacted my life, but they totally turned around how I look at goals for myself, and it also changed how I set goals for other people and to help them with their goals. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you my method for achieving goals, and if it helps you, you can try it out for yourself. And I'm also going to give you access to one of the tools I personally use on a daily basis to help me kind of set my day up. And you can have that if you want access to it as well. So I guess it all starts with a story. And the story as it goes is that I had this friend that was quite a heavy smoker. And one day they just came to me and said, I'm going to quit smoking. And I guess like all friends of smokers, we sort of think, oh, yeah, how long is that going to last? And it continued to last. And this person just went cold turkey and didn't smoke anymore. It was just like a switch had almost been flicked. And I certainly didn't want to bring it up. I know at least when you're talking to somebody who's, addicted to something, is you don't want to talk about it all the time, especially if they're trying to deal with not doing it. So, we just didn't have the conversation about it. But I remember it must have been a good 18 months down the track. I went to them and I said, I just can't believe you just used to be a smoker. I just knew you as that. Even just your smell, all these things, they're just gone. And, they said to me, oh yeah, I can't believe I used to be a smoker as well. I can't stand the smell of it. I can't even believe it when I come across people who are smokers and I can smell it on them. I'm like, how could you do that? And it just dawns on me that, oh my God, I used to be that. And so my question naturally was, how the hell did you do it, man? What did you have to say to yourself to do it? And they said, do you want the truth? I'm like, hell yeah. They said every day for 12 months, they had to say to themselves, I've just got to get through today without a cigarette. And I sat there and I thought about that for a second. It's like, wow, every day for 12 months is what it took. There was a internal battle happening every day for 12 months. And something clicked in me because by that stage I was trying to help people achieve their goals, and in particular around injuries was mainly what I was doing. And I sort of went, you know what, that's it. Because, if you had went to a smoker and you said to them, right, let's make a goal, you want to stop smoking? Alrighty. Every day for the next 12 months, you're going to have to fight it. You're going to have to fight that urge. But in 12 months' time, you'll be a non-smoker. Can you just imagine how, unsuccessful that campaign is likely to be when you're starting from there? And, when I started to see how that might correlate to all the injuries that I was working with, I would quite often have someone with an ACL repair on their knee. Now, ACL repairs typically take about 12 months to repair, in particular for return to sport. So I was having those conversations all the time. Or rotator cuff repair, for instance, that would be at least 9 months, sometimes 12 months for repair and return to activity in sport. So I was having those conversations all the time. And those patients would always come in with the exact conversation. So this is going to take 12 months to repair. I can't get my head around that. And so, the smoker friend of mine really opened up my world, because it's like, wow, how many people set goals? We know there's kind of these SMART goals, or now I think people say smarter for goals. And so many people have goals and they just fall off the wagon all the time. And I think this person sort of cracked it. They cracked the code, even though they don't even know that my life changed because of that conversation with them. So going back to when I was dealing with clients, once I had this kind of insight, if you like, then I started going, how can I take this to clients? So when I would have, say, an ACL repair to deal with, there was no way I would talk to them about the 12 months that it's going to take, because that 12 months just seems like such a long time. You're like, how am I going to get from where I am to where I've got to get to? So I started introducing this conversation of what's the milestones that we have to achieve? What's the first one? So typically speaking, as they're coming out of surgery, there'd be some milestones that you need to hit. And one would be, say, range of motion. And then we'd want to get a little bit of muscle activation going in particular in, say, your quads. And just range of motion is the first goal. So all we would say is just today, I need you to do this. This is all I need you to do on a daily basis. Don't worry about anything else. You've just got to get through the day. You've just got to work on this one goal. And so that became their focus. And then once the milestone was hit, even if they were hitting a milestone relatively early, we didn't sort of say, okay, cool, that's going to speed the 12 months up, because it wouldn't. It was still going to take 12 months. That milestone was like, okay, we've just hit a milestone. What's the next one? And that became hugely effective for me with clients, because it shifted the focus from this big picture to now, okay, I just need to control the controllables, which is just today. I just need to win today. And I applied that through everything. Even when I had an acute injury, say 4 to 6 weeks, we just applied the same thing. What's the first thing we need to get done? And what do you need to do today? And then tomorrow, when you've got to do something, what do you have to do today? I've personally, in my own life, applied that as well as to clients, and been reasonably successful with that. And so as I developed that a little bit more, developed this method for achieving goals instead of doing kind of the normal goal setting. And so now I'm in this sort of situation. I'm going to here to share it with all of you. As I started to develop these methods, there is some neuroscience to back this up. And, there's these relationships between, we could talk about norepinephrine and, acetylcholine, and how these things are going to impact you to get you into action on a daily basis to go towards that goal. But honestly, you might be interested in that. I certainly can cover it if anyone's ever interested in it. But really, it's just like, let's just go to the nuts and bolts, in my opinion. And so this method that I set up was, I started linking how I was looking at this daily goal, and then linking with some of the greatest people of all time. And so essentially kind of came up with the GOAT method for goal setting, right? So the first thing in goal setting, if you look at the G, is the goal. And the most important thing with the goal is, where are we going to? In my mind, it's like sort of having a map. And when you're trying to get somewhere, you first need to understand where the heck it is that your actual destination is that you want to head to. Because once you have that destination, at least you know where you want to get to. And then the O is for origin. Where are we actually starting from? Because it's one thing to kind of have the destination, but if you don't have the origin, if you don't have your starting point on the map, you've got no bearings to be able to start your journey. So the O is for the origin. And those two things, if you don't have those, in my personal opinion, things don't get going. The A is for your action. Now, with actions, this is where I kind of bring in the Pareto principle, or that 80-20 rule, is what are the 20% of actions that are going to give you 80% of your results. And by getting better and better at honing in and saying, even with the 20%, can I get that down? And what's the most fundamental thing that we need as an action that's going to get us 80% of our results? Because if you can focus on that, you start making progress really quickly. And then the T is for today. It's for today. We just need to win today, because when you win your day, you will win your life eventually. And just by sticking to that GOAT principle, it just, to me, simplifies things down significantly, because when I'm dealing with somebody, I know exactly kind of where to enter in. If they're not sort of specific on where they want to go, like where's the actual destination, we got to make it first, or there's no point in us talking any further. If we don't know where you are, we can't have an honest conversation about where you want to get to. And then the actions, if you're fluffing around doing a bunch of stuff that isn't making a difference to you, then that's honestly one of the skills. And in particular, someone like me helps somebody get strategies for like, what's the most important thing here to get you going. And then T for today. Like, this is all that matters. You just have to keep winning today. So that's it. That's the method. As I would apply this to people, because I was sort of in like the physiotherapy world, I didn't quite tell people exactly like, this is the GOAT method that we're using. I would just kind of do it with them without them knowing it. But the only times that wasn't successful is when people just they kept zooming out, and all they could do is focus on time frame. And sometimes I wasn't in control of talking about that because they'd seen a specialist or they talked to a doctor or a friend told them about how long it took for their knee to come right or their shoulder to come good, or it's never even come good. Once those sort of chains of thoughts would happen for some people, it was really hard to bring them back to like, hey, we just need to focus on this. And so if I, had any failures, it was usually the breakdown and the people zooming out to the bigger picture. And that it also sort of tied in with, I guess we could tie in with what we've spoken about before, is sort of Parkinson's law. And Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the allotted time slot, which, when people get told, hey, it's going to take me 12 months to get better, there's one of two ways that almost go. One would be, as I've got time, and they just be slack, and they'd try and pick it up month 8, or they would chance their arm and just see if they could wing it, or they would go hell for leather. They were like, I'm going to beat that time frame, and they would push too hard, too fast, and inevitably come undone. And to me, that's where bringing it back to just today and bringing that urgency, that Parkinson's law to, all right, the allotted time slot that we have is you just have these tasks to do and you've just got to do them today. That would make the huge difference in terms of allowing people to zone in and start psychologically feel like they're having a win and feel like they're having a win on a daily basis. That eventually leads to, good result. And it's frustrating sometimes when you're just like, I feel like I have the answer and you can't get someone to do it. And part of my battle, definitely as a therapist, was I would go home and think about the failures a lot. And I wouldn't necessarily concentrate on the wins, because the wins sort of, to me, sometimes felt like, well, that's inevitable. If you just do this, then you're going to win. It was more like, how do I get the person to do something that they don't want to do? And this is where I became, I guess, somewhat obsessed with these models and can I find the answers? But you know what? Even with this experience and even these models that I've come up with, it still comes down to the individual. And this is where I am in this kind of space now, where my shift has become to, right, how do I help as many people as I possibly can with the knowledge that I have, instead of the one-on-ones that I can't really control. I can't really control who comes through my door or who gets referred to me. And to be perfectly honest, if I had the ability to do so, there'll be plenty of people that'd say, hey, look, you're just not right for me, and walk them out the door. But because quite often I was, in my younger years, I was working for somebody, and then in my later career, you still had this professional persona that you couldn't just like turn people away. You're just not allowed to do that. It's kind of like it wouldn't even come into your mind to just have a conversation like that. But now I'm experienced, and now I've seen how many times you're like, right, you can get successes with people that really want to do something, and it's really hard to turn someone around that has almost convinced themselves, this is stretching it a little bit, but sometimes people's purpose is almost to prove that they're broken, and when you're trying to, I've turned a few of those people around. Like, I really remember those ones, because it's people that you're like, man, I really nailed that because I don't think anyone was going to turn that person around, and I did it. But it's not many. I think I could count it on my fingers. I think the amount of cases in 20 years I've had where I really was like, wow, I turned around a hopeless case almost. Now, if I change tact and say, what I love about this GOAT model that I've kind of come up with for goal setting is you can actually apply it to things that you don't know much about. So if I even just use an example of, let's say weight loss, for instance. Okay, I'm not a weight loss coach by any stretch of the imagination. But if we looked at the same thing and started to see why weight loss potentially would be quite ineffective with traditional goal setting, you can start to see how like just these little shifts might be quite significant using that kind of GOAT method. So if we said, let's say we just had a person that came in and said, hey, I want to lose 10 kilos, right? That's the destination that they want. Immediately, when you're just looking at like normal goal setting, you're looking at saying, okay, a healthy sort of weight loss is roughly about sort of 500 grams a week. I think most people would agree on that as a healthy sort of weight loss and an attainable one. That person's still looking at kind of 20 weeks or 5 months to get their goal achieved. Now, I don't know about you, but the people that I come across with weight loss, they usually get to, what are we in October at the moment? And they want a bikini body by summer, by December. But you've immediately got to say to them, hey, it's not going to happen until like March or maybe April. Immediately it goes into that, oh, let me see if I can speed this up. And so let's just say we had this person with 10 kilo that they want to lose. The first point for me would be like, right, we know the destination. Where are we starting? Now, aside from actually knowing their weight, we could say, well, ultimately it's going to be this 500 grams a week that we're wanting to lose. And so if we've got this 500 grams that we want to lose per week, you've got to be in a deficit. So nothing else really matters other than our starting point on the map is, it's really where are we starting with your calories? So my first thing would be for the origin, it might be just today, I need you to record everything that you've eaten and to, with the apps and things that are out there, it's amazing. Like the brands and everything are there just to locate it. And after a week, we would at least have a situation where we say, here's our origin. Here's where we're trying to get to. We can actually deal with reality and say, how are we going to roadmap it towards that win? Now, then the actions, the A, would become relatively straightforward. It would be, what actions are you going to need to take? Now, I'm just going to make some things up. It might be, hey, throw out all the junk in your cupboard or give it away, to homeless or give it away to somebody, just so you don't have to deal with that. That might be an action. Then we could pick something like, what's the 20% that's going to get us 80% of the results? Depending on the person, you could get creative, but let's just make something up. Let's just say, okay, the challenge will be is, you're just only going to eat something that's not out of a packet. So that's going to be your goal. Like, you're just going to eat things that are not out of the packet. That's the action that you're going to take. And then the T is like, it's just for today you're going to do that. You've just got to get through today just eating things that didn't come in a packet. That's it. Just today. Just today. You just need to win today. And all of a sudden, that weight loss goal becomes, I guess, somewhat tangible, because if you can just piece that together on a daily basis, you can start to win. And ultimately, the whole pathway to that destination has been laid out. But in a day-to-day thing, it's the winning of going, actually, there's some relative simplicity to this. I don't have to give up everything. I just have to hone in one thing. Like, notice I didn't talk about exercise. I didn't talk about all these other things, because they're not actually, in terms of a fat loss or in terms of weight loss, it's not the most important thing. That's what's been, as I said, I'm not a weight loss expert, but I guess, I'm across a fair few things. So, that's what's proven time and again. It's not the exercise. It's your daily calories, just your daily activity that accounts for the vast majority of your burning of calories. That's an example of like just how simple you can kind of apply that GOAT principle to something that I'm not really an expert in, but could help somebody with something like that just by using those principles, and could talk the person through actually finding their own way there. Because that's the beauty of it. Most people actually sort of know what to do. They're just looking to be led by somebody. But if you can actually switch that to empowering the person to take it on themselves, it's way better, because a lot of the time it's just like, hey, I knew what to do and I just needed you to reaffirm that. It's like, yeah, I get that. I'm not too dissimilar myself, That's the GOAT method, if you like, in terms of goal setting. That's what I use with myself, and it's what I've used with people to, great success. You might have a different version of that. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just sort of saying to you, like, hey, if you've been finding goals and goal setting hasn't really been working for you, give that a try. And, my hope for you is that if you can lock it into just today, how do I win today? that's sort of the next step. So that's exactly what I'm going to share with you. I then set up for myself and for people that I'm working with is how do they actually get in a habit of just winning each day? And again, this came from being around, I guess, sort of things like personal development and being around these different things and my own journey of, I was forever trying to change myself. Like I was hoping that there was going to be this point where I would actually shift into the person that I wanted to be. Like it was going to be like a switch or some sort of like magic transformation. And man, my life has come a long way. Like if people know me from when I was younger, like I wouldn't say entirely I'm just this different person, but if you watch my behavior from a day to day is vastly different. And that's actually what can shift. And it's looking at, like I look at my mind and I look at almost my brain as this piece of machinery. And that piece of machinery, I can't just change it. I can't take my brain out and my mind out and just replace it with something else. So if I can't do that, I kind of thought of it like, hey, what if I just tinker with things? What if I just alter this or shift that? And if I can do that, then I can kind of shift and tinker with what I'm doing from a behavior standpoint. And that might lead me to somewhere else, which kind of leads to these changes over a longer period of time. And so that's exactly kind of what I came up with was the tinker model for myself and started trying it out with other people. And what I'll do is I'll just bring this up on screen. So if you're listening to this, I'll just try and walk you through what it is. But as I just bring this up in front of me now, how I've structured this is this tinker to win your day, and broke this up into the AM and PM because it's got to be realistic. So many things I see out there, it's like there's lists upon lists upon lists of things to get done. And I just wanted to make this way more achievable. So in the AM is the TIN, which is the T is for think, I is for intention, and N is for narrow, and in particular, narrow down. So the T is think about your dreams and imagine them as if they're already real. And the reason that I put this one first is that if you can't actually imagine that future, you can't imagine the destination, it's going to be very hard for you to get somewhere because you kind of, to an extent, you got to put a stake in the ground somewhere. But the next level to that is you want to imagine them as if they're already real, because what happens over a period of time is you start to realize that when you have that dream, it's a feeling or an emotion that you're actually chasing. You suddenly think, hey, if I have this, or I'm this weight, or I have this much money, then I'm going to be da-da-da. Then I will be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled. Then I'll be peaceful. Then I won't be have scarcity. But the trick is, if those are the feelings that you're actually seeking, you can have them right now. And all it takes is for your imagination to go there and imagine it as if it's already real. Now, I probably won't have time to share with you just how much of my life I made by design. Like, just say basic things, like you might think it's woo-woo, and to an extent I do. I'm still on the fence about it, but I don't resist it too much. I just go with it. Like my wife looks exactly what I pictured I would want to marry. I had a dream that I'd one day have a little girl and a little boy. It's exactly what I've got. I one day wished that I would have $100,000 in my bank account. That's all I could imagine at the time because I was so broke. And achieve that. And then was like, hey, I can't imagine having $1 million. It's like, oh, I have that. And so these things, you don't want to be, I guess, too resigned and cynical about it. You want to keep that open mind, because I know the things that I have was all something that I thought up in my head. It actually just can't come any other way. Everything that you have or you've achieved at one point, it was just a thought in your head. And so I take this pretty seriously. Now, a lot of people love vision boards, and yeah, I'm a visual person, but I never really related to vision boards. I just didn't find them that powerful. But what I did is I took it really serious. I made a video of, I guess, all my dreams. So was it kind of, where do I want to live? And it wasn't necessarily an exact address, but it's kind of the scenery. Like, what's the scenery that I picture in my head that it looks like? And then it's sort of like, if there's a wealth component to it, it's like, what's the wealth? Like, what does it look like? Are there materialistic things that are in it? And so I put all of that in. Then I put in things that actually are already familiar. It's these emotions that my family that have been captured. So I kind of immediately actually get tied into, wow, I actually have some of that already with my family. And the whole video, I put it to music that I love, that's really special to me. And man, every time I see that, I'm just like, all the emotions that I want, they're there. And to an extent, I can just sit and, because some days you're not having a great day, and I can just put that on and I don't have to actively think about too much. I can just watch it and those emotions come up for me. So I do a video. And the second thing I do, which is a little bit crazy, I know, but I thought, man, I'm going to take this serious. So I actually recorded a conversation where I pretended to be my future self and talk through all the things as if they were already done. And I went into like some pretty good detail just about like what life is like, how many things are achieved, what family life is like, the adventures that you go on, all of these things. And man, I thought I was a little bit wacky when I did it at the time, but I listened to that on a daily basis. And man, I smile to myself now, because it's like this friend of mine that comes into my ears. It's so funny because it's me. But it's like it's my future self. It's kind of like, hey man, all of that is taken care of. All I need to focus on is today. What actions am I taking today? And so, that think about your dreams and imagine them as if they're already real. I kind of dedicate 5 minutes to that. And that video and the audio for me is a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but I don't skip that. It's such an important part to set my day up. And so that's the T. The I is for intention for the day. And what will you give your word to focusing on today? Now, you could take this a number of different ways, because you might have some things that you haven't been given your word to, and you want to give your word to it that day just to get through the day. Like, I gave my word to it. For myself, I focus on things slightly different. So I focus on, lately I've been like looking a lot at suffering, and that sort of pain is real and suffering is a bit of a choice. So I choose to suffer quite a lot in my own mind. I'm quite often living in the future, and I'm living in the past a lot. So I'm trying to practice come back to the present. And so I catch myself. So my intention, say on this day, and I'll show you on the if you can see the screen right now, is to catch myself when I'm choosing suffering and to choose gratitude instead. Now, some days, like, just for that day in particular, because this was back in September, I know there would have been times where that was really hard to do, but it's my intention for the day. So I gave my word to it, And so when you've got it down and you've given your word to it, it's quite easy to actually catch yourself and then shift and choose something different. For me, that's gratitude. So that's the I. N is to narrow down your daily actions to make the biggest impact. So what 20% of your actions will get you 80% of your results today? So in this particular day, my list here was the next podcast needs to be filmed. I want to try and get the editing done, which is tough to do within the same day, but I took it on. Get my course structure sorted. So I've got a course that's coming up, and the structure of that back in September is what I was working on. So on this day, I wanted to take the kids and my wife to the beach, which is just down the road here, and go and swim in the ocean, because that's my thing. I love it. And to go right here, cook a cash meal, right? That's just me being silly with myself, saying I want a meal that at the end of it, I was like, that was cash. In the middle of this sheet is a to-do list. And so that to-do list for me goes from 5 a.m. through to 8 p.m. And this is all I do this as a writable PDF, by the way, so that I can save this each day. And eventually I can look back through all the days and actually look at all these wins that I've had cumulatively when I reach where I'm wanting to go. So in this structure at 6 a.m., I had to look at the course structure. I always write done when I've finished it, because it just gives me that win. Like, yeah, I'm on track, kind of like ticking off a to-do list. 7 a.m. was course outline and how to break it up. 8 a.m. was my House of Potential model, which is another thing that I've got coming up, and to do that on Canva, which was done. And then it was to film, at 9 a.m. was film my podcast. 11 a.m. was get the editing done. Through to 1 p.m. kind of had lunch and stuff, didn't schedule that. 3 p.m. went to the beach with my kids and my wife. Was what I put as instead of done. 5 p.m. was to cook meal, nailed it, is what was my note for myself. 8 p.m., just because this is something that will fall apart for me, is reflect. So in the PM, so the Tinker, T-I-N, is the morning, and the PM is the K-E-R. So the K is know that any result from today has moved you forwards. Now, if you have taken an action, you have got a result. So the fact you have a result is a win. Everybody always looks at failure or not. That's not how you want to look at things. You want to look at things from, did I get a result? If you have a result, it means you've moved forwards. So look at the results that you have from today and get excited, because you are winning. And really spend some time. Like, I look through that day, even now, and I'm like, man, that's awesome. I did that. I really did that. That podcast is out there now. Like, whether you've been following me for a little while, you may have seen that podcast. Like, that's how it was set up on that day. So then the E is to emerge with either your next action or new information you need to seek tomorrow. And this is kind of neat, because it starts to actually give you some ideas as to what actions need to come for tomorrow. And I just jotted down some ideas. I need to film podcast on wealth next week, so start planning. So look at whether I can cut up my course into multiple videos, because my course outline was looking like, it might be too heavy for people. And then one of the things in terms of my recording with the podcast, I was like, okay, I need to get an SD reader. But, that was like a to-do to get done. The R is reflect. And this is where I think it's the thing that I skip over the easiest, but it actually could be the most impactful for you long term. And that it's to reflect on 3 things in your day that brought you the emotions you seek the most. It's ultimately what we're trying to seek. Most people are trying to seek happiness. It's like, okay, have you got your eye out for it? Like, tell me something that made you happy today. Because this overall feeling that we're searching for, I get it, but to get in that state, you're going to have had to have practiced it. So to practice getting in that state is at least to be able to reflect on things that actually happen. So, and I say emotions because you might have different emotions that you're wanting to seek. So I'll just share with you my personal ones for that day. So mine was that my willingness to get what I needed to get done. I was decisive and managed to get things exactly how I envisioned them. That's massive for me, because I get distracted easy. So just that statement alone, even now, I kind of get that it's more than just pride. It's that next one up. I kind of get that taste of courage. I get that taste of moving forward and that willingness. It's like I, obviously put willingness there. My second one was my son coming and hugging and kissing me spontaneously in the kitchen. Immediately, even as I read that out, I almost kind of well up, because I can remember that. I remember that day. I remember him running up to me and just hugged me and gave me a kiss and said, I love you. It's like, that's so cool. It's so cool. I didn't miss it. I didn't miss that. It's recorded in my brain and it's recorded on a sheet. I can have that feeling anytime I want if I just go back through these sheets. My third one was bringing presence to when I was bitching about other people and ending the conversation. And I was wishing those people the best mentally. Sometimes I can get into like dark places where, we'll probably have some enemies. I definitely had a lot of enemies in my past, a lot of my own doing, but I can sometimes get into these negative conversations where I kind of am planning, I'm planning arguments, or I'm planning what I should have said, or just waste of conversations. And so part of, that day, obviously my intention for the day was to catch myself when I'm choosing to suffer. that would have been tied into that was bringing presence to when I was bitching about somebody. I'm choosing to suffer in that moment, and wishing the best to them mentally gives me the gratitude immediately, because it's like, man, I'm so grateful that I can catch myself. Again, like shifted to being grateful for either something else or the lesson that those people might have taught me, which what might have been just to be able to be present and to bring that presence back into my life. So that's obviously, like a personal, a pretty personal day that I'm sharing with you. But this is how I set it up. I just do this on a daily basis. This is how you can set up your wins. And I really mean this when I say this. If you can win your day, you can win your life. And when I first kind of said that and I thought about sharing that, I thought it was kind of cheesy, but everybody is kind of living like they're not dying. That's my experience of working with people over 20 years. Everyone is worried about things that just don't matter. And to me, I kind of do that rocking chair test quite often. It's, if I look back, what do I want to look at? And I just want to look at things as just like, man, I really did kind of win my life. Like I went all out. I achieved more than I thought was possible. And not just kind of materialistic things outside of myself. The things that are becoming more important to me as I'm older is, what's my internal world like? What's my peace of mind like? What's my joy like? Those are the things that actually would have me consider life a win. And the only way to focus on that is to bring that into my daily activity. It's my daily focus. So, I think we'll wrap that up there. That's a lot to download. But in terms of goal setting, have a look at that kind of GOAT method that I put together. Try it out for yourself. See if you can actually find that a little bit more simple than a lot of the things that are out there in terms of goal setting. And then have a look at this Tinker model. If you're trying to set your day up to win, it's trying to tinker with the machinery that is your brain to have you win on a daily basis. You don't have to change massively. Most of it comes down to picking the most important actions that are going to have the most impact long term, and do that on a consistent basis. And it's just getting better and better at cutting out the rubbish and focusing on what you really need to focus on. So I hope that wasn't too heavy. I hope you got a lot out of that. If you've got any questions or comments, please pop them in down below. It gives me such an insight as to what was received by you, and then also what you might be interested in with this podcast going forward, because I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep rolling with this. And also I'm lining up kind of guests to come on now, depending on what people have found more interesting. So, because, I had a goal in my mind to do some like me just talking to camera for a certain amount to get myself out of the way. And then the next is now to start bringing in guests and to share their wisdom, and in particular people that have helped me along the way. So for now, it's bye from me.